When it comes to servers, there are certain words that get thrown about. I've already talked about the likes of Active Directory, DHCP, DNS, and PXE. If you want to know more about those, you can check out the other videos I've got entitled Adventures in Windows Deployment. This video is going to talk about another keyword that's in relation to servers, but not necessarily exclusive to servers, but certainly gets used mostly with them. And that word is RAID. RAID stands for the Redundant Array of Inexpensive Disks. I could talk probably a good good hour explaining what RAID is and what it does. To a Google search, basically. There's a lot of videos out there that explain what RAID does, and I'm just going to say that from a user's point of view, a RAID allows multiple hard drives to be seen as one. Historically, this was very important because hard drive spaces were extremely limited. One hard drive could be something like 4 gigabytes. Yes, I said gigabytes. You got memory sticks now. This one, oh, I picked a small one. This is 2 gig. Like I got a 4 gig and a 16 gig. Like, but point is, I'm gonna show you what RAID is going to do for me. So in a home environment, when you've got small hard drives like 4 gig, you just put up with it and you use the programs, and because the programs were small at the time, it was fine. In a corporate environment where you've got other resources, you've got documents and everything like that, RAID was a necessity because of these smaller hard drive spaces. And as I said, that RAID allows multiple hard drives to be seen as one. So if you've got 10 4 gig drives, you've now got 40 gig. So what I've done in this VM, I've added a bunch of drives. And these are just standard drives at the moment. They're unformatted. Where is it? Device Manager. Because I'm using Windows 2000 and it doesn't support SATA controllers, I've had to add them under the SCSI, but it does the same thing. It's fine. And where they are, if you're in the disk management, you can see all these drives and these 5 drives. So to get RAID to actually work, you need to write the signature. It asks which disks you want to write them on. So I'm going to do disks 2 to 6 because 0 is my primary drive and 1 is my service storage drive. Click OK. So that's all done. That's in there. I need to convert all the drives to a dynamic disk because if I leave them as basic disks, they're just going to be their own storage. When I upgrade them to dynamic, I can then use RAID settings. I can now go, is it create volume? Yeah. So when I go to create volume, I've got this option. I can make a simple volume, which is a simple volume is made up of free space on a dynamic disk. Create a simple volume if you have enough free disk space on your volume for one disk. You can extend a simple volume by adding free space from the same disk or another disk. Cool. Span volume is made up of disk space from, so a simple volume just uses one disk. Spanned volume is just basically combines the space of multiple drives into one. That is RAID 0. Mirrored is a mirrored sorry, a mirrored volume duplicates your data on 2 dynamic disks. To create a mirrored volume, if you want to keep 2 separate copies of your information to prevent losing data. Okay, that is RAID 1. That is mirroring. That is not a backup. People have a look at this and go create or see this and thinks create a mirrored volume if you want to keep 2 separate copies of all your information to prevent losing data. That is not a backup. What that is here's your OneDrive, here's your mirrored drive, this drive goes offline, you've still got your data. However, if either the RAID controller fails or this drive fails, you've lost all your data. It is not a backup of this drive. You take this drive out of the array, I believe that you can't read it, but I have a solution to that. What is RAID 5? RAID 5 volume stores all data in stripes on 3 or more dynamic disks, like a mirrored volume. However, it provides a way of recovering data if part of the data is lost. RAID 5 stores data more efficiently than a mirrored volume and requires less space. Okay, so a mirrored volume, generally you have two disks, one's a mirror of the other. That makes sense, yeah? If you had 4 disks, 2 disks are your mirror of the other 2 disks. So you halved your capacity. So if I go back to the example of the 4 gig drives, here's 4, here's 8. Well, I should have 12 and 16. Well, I don't, because this is a mirror of this, I've only got 8 drives. When it comes to RAID 5, I can actually use any number of drives above 3. And I think the way it works, because I got 5 drives in here, it will use the space of 4 drives, and I'll use the 5th drive as a parity drive. That basically means that if I lose any of the one of the 5 drives, sorry, take a step back. The parity, they say that drive 5 is a parity drive. Technically, I think that's either RAID 3 or RAID 4, and all the parity information is stored on one drive, which is a problem because if you lose that drive, you lose the parity information. What RAID 5 is, it actually splits the parity between the other drives, but for simplistic's case, people just say that one drive contains all the parity bits. There's many videos out there that explains that in much greater detail. What is striped volume? A striped volume stores data in stripes on 2 dynamic disks. A striped volume gives you faster access to your data than a simple or spanned volume. It's more efficient than these two, but anyway, I'm going to do RAID 5. And then I'm going to select which disks I want. Select the dynamic disks. So I got 5 disks here, but then I've only got 16 gigabytes. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. But one drive, or the size of one drive, is used for parity information. So it's essentially using 4 to the 5 drives. So size for all selected disks yeah, okay, that's fine. Assign letter F, yeah, that's not a problem. Make that, call that RAID 5, 16 gigabytes. Yep, okay, finish. So that has now created a RAID 5 volume of 16 gigabytes. It's regenerating at the minute, but if I go into Windows Explorer, I should be able to see it. Yeah, there it is, 16 gigabytes, and it just looks like a single drive. So what does that mean? Well, I can take a file, such as this file here, which Windows 2000 doesn't recognize, but it doesn't matter for the purpose of this, it's fine. I can go to here, and I can just dump it straight in. So I'll be back once that copies. Okay, good. So that file is now copied, and it did seem a bit slow, but it's a 8 gig file, is it? Let's have a look. Yeah, it's 8.45 gigabytes. I don't know what the speed was, but I'm not too bothered about the speed because this is a virtual machine running on an M.2 drive, emulating an IDE drive using RAID. It's a lot of things in there, so I'm not too bothered, but what I am showing you is just the principle of it. Yeah, so as you can see, the 5 drives are here, and there is fault tolerance on this drive, and you have 20% head, so you're using one drive as your parity and that's your overhead. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to simulate one of my drives failing, and where a drive would fail, it happens, it does happen. So I'm going to simulate that, so I shall be back momentarily. So what I've done, I've taken one of the drives out of the RAID, and this RAID will still function. Let's go into 16 gigabyte. Let's have a look. What is the capacity? The capacity is actually there. It thinks it's got 16 gigabytes there. However, when I go into disk management, should tell me that one of my drives is missing. And it does. It tells me it's failed redundancy. So if I lose another drive, I lose the RAID. I remember now how it's doing it, because the size of the drive I see is 4 times 4 gigabytes, which is 16, and I see 16 gigabytes. Just because the one of this drive has failed, it doesn't mean I have lost any storage, which is great, to be fair. Okay, let's go through the process of how I replace this drive. So the server has to be offline for this to happen. And what you would do, you would take the old drive out, or the failed drive out, and then how do you identify? Well, generally in a server, there's drive bays. There's now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 drive bays, and the disk number is associated to the disk number of the drives that your PC can see. So my OS drives, say it's up here, and then my storage drive is here. So that's the disk 0, that's disk 1. This is disk 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And it's telling me that disk 6 is missing. This drive is going to be the one that's going to be failed. So physically, I would turn off the server, take this out, get a replacement drive, and put it in. If it's good practice to have the same size drive that's in there at the moment and the same speed. If you do mix and match, I can show you what happens, and more notably how you upgrade the RAID. So, but in the meantime, let me just replace the drive and see what happens. So there's some data on this, and there's 2 weeks left. I'm not gonna copy that anymore, so there's no point. So I'm gonna take out the drive and put a fresh one in, and I'll just show you what happens. I have taken out that drive. I have put a new drive in. Let's see what happens. So go back into my computer, go into disk management, and it can see the failed drive, which is failed redundancy, and you can also see disk 6. Let's have a look to see if the data is still intact. My computer, 16 gig, yes, it is intact. All the files are there, and you can see that the storage is there, so it hasn't altered the storage. So what I need to do here, I need to convert this new drive as a dynamic drive. Upgrade to dynamic disk, yes. So this drive that says missing, where is it? I need to repair its volume. So if I selected any one of these, it'll do it the same. But I'd rather do it on the one that is missing. So I go repair volume. Select one of the disks listed below to be used as replacement for the broken RAID 5 volume. Click disk 6, which is the new disk. Click OK. And what it's doing now, it's regenerating. So can I copy these whilst that's regenerating? Yes, I can actually copy files off the array. So I shouldn't use the word array when I refer to RAID, because RAID is redundant array of independent disks, or inexpensive disks, I should say. So it becomes that plus array. So I can copy data off the RAID whilst it's regenerating. So you can see how this is very useful to businesses. It keeps production up. Not production, sorry. It keeps data up. This is purely just data. But if programs relied on this data to get their programs to run, like a database server or VM storage or something like that, you can easily see how useful it is, because it keeps it up, and you can still copy from it. From as far as the user's concerned, yeah, okay, it is possibly slightly slow, but as far as what the user's experiencing, they know no different, and the RAID is still regenerating, which is really cool. Okay, so I'm really happy that it works, and this 16 gig RAID is a bit small though. It's but what happens if I want to upgrade? Normally, if you just had a small disk, you would you swap it out. But in RAID, you can't swap all the drives out, because if you do, you break the RAID. There's a little trick with this though, and something which might not be standard, but something which makes sense to me. I have, where's my computer? I have a few drives here. I got my local disk, I got server storage, which is a 100 gig drive, and then I got the 16 gig. What I'm going to do, actually I've already done it, I've copied whatever's on that 16 gig drive, or 16 gig RAID, and I've copied it to the 100 gig as a single drive. So I'm just gonna replace my, I'm gonna delete the RAID, and then I'm gonna swap them out for bigger size drives, then rebuild the RAID, and then copy my data back. So what I'll do here is I shall delete the volume. All data on the 16 gig RAID 5 volume will be lost. Are you sure you wish to delete the selected RAID 5 volume? Actually, I mentioned about production earlier. You wouldn't do this in a production environment. You would tend to have a separate RAID controller and a build the array. Sorry, using that word again. You would build a separate RAID controller, so in this instance will be a separate server and a VM. You would then, what would you do? I'm not exactly sure what you would do, but my guess is you would create have a second controller, and you would basically get anything that needs to get pointed to that second RAID, which is a bigger capacity and whatever else. And simplistically, Windows looks at a drive letter for programs to work. So if you're just changing the drive letter, so instead of physically being on this PC, or on this server, it's physically on this server, but all you're doing is saying you are now E, you are not E. Honestly, I don't know. Is the correct question, which seems a bit odd to end the video on, but it's something I've not dealt with. But it's a very good experiment, and this is why I'm running. I'll be quiet. This is why I'm running the virtual machines and seeing what I can do. It may not be best practice, but it's working. And to be honest, for me, I don't care. This is going to be... So do I need to revert all these back to a basic disk first? I don't. But I'll do it anyway. Revert back to basic disk 3, 4. And there's one of them I'm missing up here. Okay. So yeah, so what I would do at this point, I've taken the disks back to basic, and I would just take those out. I would put new drives in their place. So instead of 4 gig drives, they have 40 gig drives. So my overall capacity would be 160 gig instead of 16. So I've increased it to 10 times. I could put 4 terabytes, or well, sorry, 1 terabyte each drive, which equals to 4 terabytes in space. I could do it that way, as long as the data I've got is backed up. But for continuity purposes, I don't know, is the honest answer. But one thing I didn't cover, which should be done, is once your RAID is set up, you need a separate drive like this server storage to back up the data from there. Because originally I said that the mirrored drive, you'd have data on this drive, data on this drive. You lose that drive, okay, you got the data on this drive. But this is the only instance of it. What you should do, regardless if you have mirrored setup or striped or RAID 5 or whatever, you should then copy that data onto a separate drive. So for example, this 100 gig drive I have here should be a copy of my RAID. So what happens is, if the controller goes down for any particular reason, I have the data there, so I haven't lost any data once I rebuild it. I will end this video saying I've not done Raid myself. This is probably the third time I've done it, because this is the third time I've tried to run this video, and it is definitely an interesting concept and probably something that will need to be explained and need to be practiced in a real environment. Because for me, in a virtual environment, for what I'm doing, it's gonna make no sense. If a lot of servers now are virtualized anyway, so it does make a lot of sense. But you generally have the hypervisor as part of server-based hardware, and anyway, I don't know what the next video is going to be. I will probably continue the Windows deployment series, but I wanted to make this video because it was a small footnote, really, but didn't really fit into the deployment side. So yeah, just pay attention to the channel and see what else I come up with. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I shall catch you later.